Now, when I think about lean transformation at Rockwell Collins, I'm reminded of a very simple story. It's a story of two hikers that are out in the forest who get chased by a bear. Many of you probably heard this story. One of the hikers, as they're running away from the bear, says, "It's hopeless. We'll never outrun this bear." To which the other hiker turns to him and very coldly says, "What do you mean? All I have to do is outrun you." Well, I got to tell you, that's exactly how I felt when I first came to Rockwell Collins in the mid-1990s. Because you see, metaphorically speaking, the other guy was our competitor, and the bear was our customer. They were insatiably demanding higher quality, innovative solutions, faster cycle times, and lower cost. And like us, our competitors were running very fast to try to see if they could outrun us. Well, it wasn't always the way it is now. For those of you that may be less familiar with Rockwell Collins, we're about a $3.5 billion corporation doing business with government and commercial customers worldwide. We supply aviation electronics and communication equipment primarily, and we're about equally split. About 54% of our revenues are with the government and the balance with commercial customers. I could go on a long story of how we've transformed Rockwell Collins, its organization, and its structure, but that's not the purpose of my discussion today. I'm going to talk to you about how lean has played an integral part in that transformation to what we have become today, a public and independent company now since our spinoff from Rockwell International in 2001. But in the mid-1990s, Rockwell Collins, I should say, was a very different company in many, many ways, not the least of which was the way that it looked at trying to structure its efficiency drivers. And at that time, because of the disparate nature of our company, very unintegrated, very decentralized, each one of these parts having a different efficiency driver, we were faced with a workforce that is somewhat cynical about the revolving door of consultants that were coming through on a regular basis telling how they were going to help make us better. Now, in the midst of that environment, when I arrived, I went around and talked to all of our customers, and the resounding theme, even then in 1995, is you got to get your costs down. Your prices are too high for us to be successful. You've got to reduce that. And in fact, the mantra in the commercial business where I was at the time was, you got to get your costs down 30% in 3 years. And as I came reeling back to our headquarters after listening to these continuous entreaties, I realized we had no earthly idea how to do that. But we knew that that's what the customer wanted, and typically you like to give the customer what he wanted. So my great aha moment that led me on the first step of a lean journey occurred when I was called to Seattle by the Boeing Company as a supplier of them in the commercial market at that time, to listen to what their expectations were of their suppliers to get lean. I went with my vice president for manufacturing, and he had worked in the Lean Aircraft Initiative earlier. And on the way, literally to Seattle, that 4-hour trip, he was explaining to me what the principles of lean were, because I had no earthly idea what it was. And so by the time I got to Seattle, I had a vague idea of the terminology, but I must admit, I was still unclear as to what this thing was. And for a full day, I listened to expert after expert, after customer, tell me what the great opportunities were if we were to get lean. And literally, that's when I had my metamorphosis. On the flight back from Seattle to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, is where Herm Reinig and I began to craft what would become a branded identity for us, which is Lean Electronics. Because we knew of all the different parts that were going on there, that this is the thing that could pull it all together. That we needed at first an umbrella initiative to convince a doubtful population that we could do this. And then we needed a place to start which we thought had a reasonable idea of success. And so from that time then, we began to put together this new lean philosophy. And we started with 2 fundamental requirements. The first is that we were going to do everything we could to focus on serving our customers better by bringing them more value. That the business case of serving the customer had the best chance of success, both with our workforce and obviously with our business. And the second is that we wanted to implement more than just lean activity. We did need a philosophy to change the culture, one that would allow us to promote and sustain that philosophy through the entire organization. Something that, more importantly, would not be seen by our employees as an initiative or a flavor of the month, which was breeding that cynicism. So as we were developing this philosophy, we looked at the many opportunities available to us to populate that umbrella. We looked at Six Sigma and lean manufacturing and total quality management and quick response manufacturing and all the other ones that everyone in this room knows so well. Our lean electronics strategy was then developed by choosing what we felt were the best principles of each that would work for us and applying them in our work processes in both the factory and the office environments. That was very important for us because while it was common practice to root out waste in the factory, we were one of the first, and I think very early, to recognize the need to eliminate waste throughout our enterprise in non-factory areas, ranging from engineering to finance to human resources, because they all had waste and they were all part of our cost structure. In fact, creating a lean enterprise was a top priority for our organization, and looking back, I can say this definitively, I've said it in many environments, there is no single initiative that I have pioneered and pushed in the almost 11 years I've been at Rockwell Collins that has been more important or contributed more to the success of our company than lean electronics. And I will try to define how that's happened through the balance of my presentation.